Hey, what's up? This is Steve Cardenas, aka Rocky the Red Power Ranger, and Jeff Brazzo, Trent Fernandez Mercer from Battle Thunder, and you are watching Team Venom Media.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Team Venom's Power Ranger podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bailey, joined by my co-host himself, Paul Baker. How's it going, Paul?
Doing good.
Cool.
You know what this means, don't you? Season 3, baby.
That's right. And as you know, Paul, we've had loads and loads of special guests in the past. One of our recurring guests, Ron Wasserman, was one of the composers of a lot of the early stuff for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Zeo and whatnot. And today we've got a very, very, very special guest in one of the other composers from Mighty Morphin. Well, not from Mighty Morphin, but from the Power Rangers franchise, Mr. Ry Welch. So, Ry, how's it going?
It's going very well, thank you. Pardon me, but I do have a little bug in my throat, little thing. So pardon me if I cough every once in a while.
That's okay. It's that time of year.
The weather here in LA is up and down. It was in the 40s just 3 hours ago, and now it's 60. So the weather's been pretty crazy in LA lately. So a lot of allergies and all kinds of crap.
No, fair enough. Well,
so pardon me.
Well, I know you worked on Operation Overdrive and was it Jungle Fury for Power Rangers that you did?
That's correct. That was when the franchise was sold to Disney. So the Operation Overdrive was the first Disney season. And so they had a whole new team. And in the East in overseeing the project, you know, the folks at Disney and ABC. You know, they only commented on my music from the first 2 episodes, and the first 2 episodes are like a combined, you know, 2-parter. After they only watched the first, they only did notes on musical direction from the first episode, and after that I never got any sort of musical direction whatsoever, any comments, anything. So I was free basically to do whatever I wanted, and no one was going to tell me not to do it. So it really gave me an opportunity to do what I wanted to do and write the kind of music that I wanted to write, without anybody telling me not to do anything differently. So for me, it was an incredible opportunity, because I had that kind of freedom to write whatever I wanted. So I got to be very experimental and write all kinds of crazy stuff that I couldn't get away with in any other scene at all.
So how'd you get your foot in the door as far as Power Rangers? Were you in like other big projects ahead of time, or how'd that work out?
So really what happened was is I had after I moved to Los Angeles, I had stayed in contact with my composition teacher from the New England Conservatory, because he's a good friend, and I always stayed in touch with him. And when I was a student there, he had taught Sean Callery, who later came to be scoring the show 24, starring Kiefer Sutherland, and that was running at the time. And I had met Sean when he came to speak to the film scoring class at New England Conservatory. And at the time, Sean Callery was he was working as a sound designer on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But he worked for Synclavier for a long time and was doing updates on all the systems out here in LA. So all the big film composers who had a Synclavier he was at their place, film and television composers. And so he started ghostwriting for Mark Snow on X-Files. And that's how he got started scoring. And but one thing led to another, and eventually he was doing 24. And so I had spoken to my composition teacher about Sean, and he said he hadn't heard from him. And then 2 days later, my composition teacher, Bob Seeley, he called me and said that he heard from Sean and that Sean was looking for an assistant on 24. So I started working with Sean Callery and scored a bunch of scenes for that. And Sean had, I don't know, it didn't work out. But in the meantime, I started approaching all the other television composers in town and showing them what I had done for Sean, and they all liked that. So one of these composers had this Power Rangers stuff come to him because it had been bought by Disney, and they were, now they're looking for composers for the show because they've now newly owned the franchise. So they had come to an agent, and that agent came to this composer that I know. And coincidentally, an old friend of mine who I used to work with in New York City, I had been speaking with him, and he said, hey, that this composer, he's doing demos for Power Rangers right now. And I was like, wow, that's the guy that I know. I should write him an email. I wrote him an email and I said, hey, look, I wanted to let you know, my wife's pregnant and we're having a kid and I'm so excited, et cetera, et cetera. Hitting him up, do you have any work? So he's like, so he has kids. So I knew that would pull at his heartstrings. And if he had anything, he'd let me know. So because I knew about this, I was like, oh, I'm having a kid. I need work. So then he said, oh, I got this demo, we got this shot at Power Rangers, do you want to do a demo? And I said, yes. And so he sent me a little scene, and I stuck in some music I did for something else that worked, and sent it back to him, and I got the gig.
Nice.
So they liked, they liked the music. They signed me all the action music. I basically did all the action music for the show. and a good deal of it, most of it. And because that was my strong suit, and they had other people that could do the other little piddly things. So I was doing all the action music. So that was really exciting for me to and my really what I wanted to do was combine like Carl Stalling, straight to picture, like crazy stuff with Megadeth. And that was my whole idea, was that I was going to do speed metal combined with crazy orchestral stuff. And that was what I did for Operation Overdrive. And then when it came to doing Jungle Fury, they had been temping some scenes with music from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, with a score by Tan Dunn, which has lots of percussion and lots of male vocal chorus on it. And so when I went to do when I went to score Jungle Fury, because it was Chinese based music, I bought a pipa, a Chinese 4-string lute called a pipa, and I bought some Chinese percussion instruments and a Chinese flute and some other instruments like that I could play. And I did, and then because there was so much vocals, like I would record tons of overdubbed vocal tracks myself, doing things like just making noises, basically, like that kind of shit over and over again, like tons of tracks of it, or singing various harmonies or lines, all kinds of things. But lots of vocal parts in most of the stuff that I did for Jungle Fury, as well as the live pipa playing, and lots of live percussion. So after my season, I wasn't on again. the other guy, the guy who was running the show, running the composers from his office in New York, he's like, my wife, she lost her job and I need more work, so I'm taking over like more scoring, so we don't need you. And but it went straight to cable. It went to cable after that, and it wasn't even on network. And the fact of the matter is when it was running on network, because they had showed it on XD 3 nights before, everybody who wanted to watch the show watched it on XD. Nobody watched it Saturday mornings, and the ratings were crap, and it was always preempted. They would show That's So Raven instead. And here,
Yeah, because that's a real good trade-off.
and then here on the West Coast, football games, because the football games would start, and the time difference means that they would come on, at the same time that Power Rangers would come on. So I didn't make the kind of money that I was supposed to make, because the ratings weren't very good, so they weren't showing the show all the time. And when they were showing it, they had changed the way that they pay, and ratings make a difference as to how much you get paid. Because the ratings were so bad, I didn't make so much money here domestically on royalties from broadcast. Most of the money I ended up making was from France and Israel. Actually, they paid the most in royalties.
With you being, I know Power Rangers is what we've got you on here as a result of. But every guest that we've had on that's worked on Power Rangers and other projects, we like to talk about some of their other things. And I was checking out some of your more recent projects on Spotify, where you can see multiple albums by yourself. There's Catch Me Bird, Iron, and Silk. There's the beginning and the end. There's a new one called Hostile Lazarus. So you've been very, very busy just on that alone. What's been your most enjoyable project since the show of since working on Power Rangers?
Well, since Power Rangers, let's see. The Catch Me Bird stuff was a live dance projects. I worked with a dance company that I scored their live dance performances, and so they had shows at theaters here in Los Angeles that I wrote all the music for, and like Power Rangers, it's dance is action oriented, and I don't. The other nice thing about dance is I don't have to compete with other sound on stage. There's no dialogue, there's no sound effects, there's none of that stuff. So the only thing that people hear is what I made while they're watching the dance. So that is really wonderful bonus working with the dance company, writing music. So yeah, and then most recently my new album Hostile Lazarus, which I really wanted to return to my roots and write music like I was writing for Power Rangers, except have vocals and make it into songs, not traditional songs, but pieces of music that have vocals and speed metal. And so I combined, I worked in the same way that I wrote the Power Rangers stuff, which is a change for me as far as writing, songs. But I would just go through and instead of writing to picture, I'm just writing just whatever I want. When I was scoring Power Rangers, I would go and write a bass line for the entire scene, and use that as my guide, and then fill in basically everything around that. But writing the bass line would give me some structure and figure out where the hits are, where the time changes, where there's different sections, things like that. So I wrote this album Hostile Lazarus in the same way. as I would just go through and write straight through and then come back and fill everything in around it. So it results in something a little different than you would normally get. I'm very, very, very proud of that. I play all the instruments, drums, guitars, bass, keyboards, and tons of vocals. I started playing drums 2 years ago. That's the only thing about the Power Rangers stuff that, especially the Operation Overdrive stuff that I would want differently is I would want real drums on it, as opposed to the program stuff. But now that I play the drums, that's kind of what I wanted to do was do what I was doing then, except with real drums now, and make it into standalone alone pieces of music that are, interesting like I did then. So,
I mean, you could actually pull a Ron Wasserman. He went back and he remastered all of his music just to see if you can do it over again. So, I mean, with you playing your live drums now, it might be a thought to throw out to you there.
yeah, but the Power Ranger stuff is long done. Nobody wants to hear it again. And if they do, they can hear it watch it with the picture the way it was. Nobody's going to pay me to the amount. It would take me forever to do drums on all those things, and it would. Yeah, I'll write new stuff.
So I'm going to give you the most basic vanilla question you've ever been asked.
Please.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Yes.
I could tell you're sitting down, so I know you're prepared.
I'm sitting.
What got you into music?
Well, when I was a kid, I was singing in a lot in the church choir and things like that. And I was as a child, when I was singing, I was recognized as being a good singer, and people would compliment my voice when I was a little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, because I got so much positive attention for that. I just kept at it, and I took piano lessons, clarinet lessons, voice lessons when I was 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, that kind of thing. So I had the background, and I had the positive reinforcement of people complimenting my singing. So I just kind of stuck with it, and that's how I got into it. And I stayed because nothing else has really interested me quite as much, given me as much ability to be creative, and at this point, I do it. I've been doing it for so long that and I have enough experience that I'm not qualified for anything else.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, where if you work with the sort of thing that you love, then it's never going to feel like work, which is great. You mentioned how you'd done scoring on various
right now I'm writing cues for a Bravo reality TV show called Summer House Martha's Vineyard. So it's and believe me, it's boring sometimes. So
fair enough.
It's still work. It's still even when you do something you really love, people will manage to find a way to make it work.
Fair enough.
That people will manage to turning what you love into something that you would rather not do. You'd rather be doing something else. I'd rather be writing music. I'd rather write other music than wallpaper. I can't, I don't think I can get away with the same kind of stuff as when I'm writing action music. You know what I mean?
Well, outside of Power Rangers and your own albums and whatnot, what other projects have you worked on, movie wise and TV wise and whatnot?
Well, let's see. There was a film I scored called Mommy and Me. It was a romantic comedy. A lovely film. and then I also did Wonder Woman XXX, a porn parody,
Nice.
which I
Okay.
adapted a lot of, I adapted a lot of my Power Rangers, excuse me, I adapted a lot of my Jungle Fury music for that for the Wonder Woman film. Actually, the director of that film was probably one of the best directors I've worked with. He actually had a lot of talent for shooting the movie. Funnily enough, you know what I mean? It's like all the stuff I work on, the most talented director I work with is actually in adult entertainment. You know? So let's see what else. Not this stuff I'm doing right now is for television. Mostly I've just been working on my albums and things like that. I have a kind of day job where I do community outreach for development projects here in the city of West Hollywood.
Nice.
Development, yeah. So it's not all music, which is kind of good because it gives me a time to kind of get my mind off of into other things so that I can feel fresh when I get back to it.
Fair enough.
Now, you mentioned earlier about like some of your music being Megadeth orchestral type hybrid
Yes.
based. Now, I'm a Metallica, S&M guy, love those albums. But going back to when you were, 5, 6, 7 years old, who were your was your go-to metal, rock, country? Like, what was your
Well, when I was
what stunk the hook in?
it wasn't anything. It really wasn't until I was in high school, I would say, that I really started listening to a lot of music. And at that point, when I was, I guess, sophomore, when I was a freshman, I took some piano lessons and I was playing keyboard some, and I was in a band for a little while. But then I bought an electric guitar. And after I bought an electric guitar, that's kind of when it really sunk in, because I just had so much fun learning to play the electric guitar and playing songs on electric guitar. It was so cool. So that was kind of what changed. And after I played guitar for I don't know, 8 months or a year or something like that, I noticed everybody was looking for bass players, and so I went and bought an electric bass, and immediately everybody was asking me to be in their band, and so I said, well, screw that, I'll start my own. So if everybody wants me to be in their band, then I'm just going to start my own. And so that's what I did. I started my own band, and I had the best musicians in my high school in the band, and we were fantastic, and it was a lot of fun. And that was really when I was just completely, that's when I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing with my life.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it at that. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm pretty sure I speak for Paul as well.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I'm pretty sure I speak for Paul as well to say that we'd be more than happy to have you on whenever you fancy joining us again. Chat about whatever projects you got coming up and such. But yeah, thank you very much. And for anyone that's watching now on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify, especially if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you search for Ry Welch, especially Hostile Lazarus, which is out on there, as well as multiple other albums that you'll find under the artist page. So again, thank you, Ryan.